as we alluded to in the slides, OnePlan is really meant to be a comprehensive solution that we can work with to do the things that we want to do. But one of the key things is, as an individual contributor into these things, you may have specific things applicable to you that you want to get to without having to navigate in a large portfolio of things that are being worked on. So for example, this home or insights page for Daniel Williams tells Daniel that he has things that are overdue, things that are out of compliance, things that are due, things that require approvals, etc. That give him an idea of where things need his attention or maybe are falling off track. He also has access to the plans that he has access to himself that he may be able to work on. He can even create new plans from here. He could even access different elements of the different plans, work plans, resource plans, financials, etc., if he has the rights to do so, as well as the collaboration and conversations that may be going on regarding his work efforts on tasks and resources and projects, as well as things that might be due this week or overdue and et cetera. But giving him a good place to start from as he navigates the things that pertain to him without all the noise around the things that don't pertain to him. Now, we talked about the strategy piece, and that's important to make sure that what we're working on actually aligns with the strategies or the directions of our leadership of our organization. And this is where you can, create your objectives and your key results. Something that might be aligned here with what we want to talk about here is maybe launching a new product line that we're researching into, right? And the things regarding that and the key results are the tangible measures that might support telling us whether or not we're on track to actually achieve this within the time frame that we've set out for it. So if I drill into an objective and a key result, let me drill into an objective here, launch a successful new product line. And let me just first go into the details page. That details page, and by the way, this is configurable for the data elements that you'd like to capture around it, allows you to capture the categorizations, the prioritizations, a narrative description of what it is that you need to do, maybe a time frame on when you'd like to have that done, what we think the costs and the benefits might be, how we prioritize this, maybe with business drivers that are prioritizing and generate a prioritization score, and then also association with the tangible key results that are aligned with this. Now, one of the key things I want to show here is the concept of our visualizations. And these visualizations will tell us, for example, is there anything that we are dependent on or is dependent on us? And we don't have any predecessors or successors with this one, but we do have a bunch of associations. So for example, here, this objective has some key results and we can see the status of each of these. This one's a little bit on at risk. Then in turn, the projects and epics that relate to this within that, as well as the different products, applications, business capabilities, and value streams that might be associated with any one of these, right? So for example, if I was looking at one of the things that's associated with me, and I was curious, and I was concerned that something was red, I could very easily go in here and pop out a quick edit of the details around that and find out why that project might be red. I can see the categorizations. I can also see the scorecard and the trending on here. And it looks like what's off track is the schedule and the financial aspects. So it looks like we're running over budget and we're running behind schedule on this to give you an idea of what the problems are there. And any particular status that's current in there would show in here any narrative status that you'd want to put in there regarding that particular plan. Once again, visualization on how all these things are interrelated with one another, right? You could also quick edit into, say, a product that you were concerned about, right? And quick edit into that, and you can see all the various things regarding a particular product. So there's Pied Piper, which is yellow, that I'm concerned about. Notice it's got different data elements for product management on the product description and the product vision canvas that's in here as far as the data and the status regarding that as well. So once again, the interrelations here are important for communication and also to factor other things into your decisions that are germane to your decision and to your success. If you drill into a key result, like this develop, let me drill through develop minimum viable product. Same whole things here. Here we actually have a predecessor that says develop and implement a comprehensive capital planning project process, as well as in the runway. Now we have a more focused set of associations, where we tie back to an objective. We're only tied on this one to a couple of projects in Epic and to one product, et cetera, as we go through, as well as the business capabilities and value streams and no applications. So once again, full visualization of what it is that we're looking for, as well as the metrics that we want to track to, hitting our targets, and then what percentage of completion we are on hitting those targets. Then let's move to ideas, because things start out as ideas before they become actual projects or initiatives as we go through those. And OnePlan provides a portal that allows anybody in your organization or anybody you give access to come in here and submit ideas or requests. And if I go into an example of one in here, that might be a new product or research that needs to be done, but it's on mobile application development. In this particular case, there is a predecessor that we're looking at here on voice assistant integration. And in the runway, we're looking at, the things that are related to mobile application development. But the details in here, what you'll see is that once again, we can tailor these forms with simple drag and drop form building and configuration, not custom development. We can categorize these things. We can devise business case narratives against them. We can actually define either in detail or in high level budget and benefits required, and also a prioritization method, whether it be more business driver method where we determine how strong and strategically aligns, does it lower cost or improve revenue, does it reduce risk, and have a calculated prioritization score based upon your methodology of the way you would prioritize. Or you can use some agile methods like weighted shortest job first if it's an agile methodology that you're going to be using to do these things. Once again, these things all come into being the way you'd like them to. They're all highly configurable. And at any given point in time, you can come in here and you can reorganize a idea or a request and convert it into a project, say, for example, and carry forth with it all the data and all the elements that you collected and modified over the course of its idea stage, so that you don't lose all that and you progress this and promote it into a project as we move forward. Now, I would say this, as you go into, say, a different view, and I go into, say, the all ideas view here. Notice that we have the concept of voting. We talked about crowdsourcing earlier on, where, for example, we come into something like this and I can see this thing's digital, this digital transformation one has 5 votes. It says that I voted on this one, and there's there's 4 other votes in addition to mine. So there's 5 total votes on this, as opposed to some in here that no one's voted on at all. So the idea here is you can get that whole voting and collaboration aspect on that into the mix here as well. And I would say this, let me go back to the prioritization view in here. This is a case where I can use a live request of Sophia. So say, for example, I open up Sophia here in the lower right, and I'm going to ask Sophia, based on priority and ROI, what 3 projects should we approve first and why? So we've got all these ideas, we've got all this prioritization, we got all this narrative in here that it's looking at, and it's going to assess out of all the stuff we're looking at, which 3 should we approve first? And it's going to look at all the criteria. So it's going to look at not only the knowledge of what it knows from its general knowledge from Azure OpenAI, it's going to factor in the data we've put in here in OnePlan. So it tells us here the voice assistant integration should be done. It's a high priority. It's a strong potential financial gains and relatively low cost for what we're going to do. The cloud migration, even though this is medium priority, it offers substantial ROI and it gives the rationale behind that. And then customer relationship management. So it's giving us not only its suggestions, but its rationale for why we should do those types of things. So once again, help in helping us discern what in our decision making. Now next we go over to the project portfolio. And in that project portfolio, this can be structured in a variety of different ways. So from an organization that might be looking at more of an enterprise portfolio like this one would, you might have different portfolios within the overall portfolio. So for example, I got one for data analytics transformation, one for product innovation, one for capital investment, one for operational excellence, business transformation, application development, etc. And the thing is, you can define this structure any way you like. This one is defined as portfolio level, program level. Then you could have either projects or epics, meaning it's really depicting primarily waterfall versus agile efforts in there. And you can even take those agile efforts and break them down into a feature level if you want to, if those are going to be your project type of increments that you want to track in your portfolio. Once again, just one way of doing it, and that's one template that we have to get you started, right? Now, for example, if you were in R&D on the product innovation portfolio, you can determine through enterprise security in OnePlan, as well as in what we call our share with function, that you can determine who has access to which portfolio. So even though you may be part of an overall enterprise portfolio, you can segment what people can actually see or get into that product innovation portfolio. So once again, you can be part of a bigger mix, but still be able to have the proper security that you want for the privacy of that data, okay? Now, I would also say that as we go expand this out, you can see that there is a program level, and then there is a project and epic level where all the different projects are at. And we're looking at a list view here that's more KPI oriented, that tells us where we're at on things as far as overall status, schedule health, financial health, effort health, issue health, etc. But you can have a variety of other views in here that basically allow us to look at other aspects. We could be looking at a financial summary with more financial columns of data, or other aspects of that we'd want to look at. So for example, being able to look at the dollars as opposed to just progress, right? And how we're looking at financials, how we want to look at how we're spending effort, how we're trending on other things. These are all things that can be set up by you for what columns of data you'd like to appear in any particular view as we go through, and you can just choose which columns to appear, and you can save either personal or more global views for yourself as you go through this. Now, I would say this, the other piece is that even though we have what we'd call a primary hierarchy, as we said, the program and the portfolio, et cetera, you can basically have other views that aren't driven by that hierarchy. For example, you can have different pieces of metadata and categorization of these plans that allow you to slice it in other ways. For example, I could come in here and say, let me group this by business unit. And so now all of a sudden, instead of looking at it by portfolio, program, and project, I'm now saying, okay, what are the applications projects? What's the capital planning project, et cetera, and summarizing into those areas. You know, what are the categories of our projects, right? We may categorize these things into different categorizations, where I'm looking at business transformation projects, compliance projects, right? Innovation projects, how are they primarily categorized? What types of projects they are? Or even if I want to look at things like ownership or sponsorship, who's the executive sponsor and who's aligned with those? And I can see them grouped or filtered by those different parameters, in this case by the executive sponsors as we go through. So once again, I can see Amanda's got hers, I've got Angela, et cetera. So once again, different flexible ways that you can look at your portfolio. In that area, I'm going to go over to just a different model that uses a different template. And this one is for kind of more, biopharma clinical research. And instead of programs, right, and portfolios and projects, this one is designed and plan types by therapeutic area, by asset and molecule, and then program plans and functional plans within those. So once again, just another way that this can be organized. Another way that you could do this in a more product-oriented research and development, you could do this by different product lines and products that we're working on, et cetera, and do your plan type hierarchy that way. So once again, very much flexible in the way you'd like to organize all this. If I go back to a portfolio summary view here, and I'd also like to show in here that in any given portfolio with the plans, you'll see there's icons next to each of the plans, whether it's a project or an epic. And this can determine whether or not you're using other tools connected in there with integration to feed into these portfolio items. For example, I've got one here that's just linked out to a Microsoft Teams site for content and collaboration, but that's telling me that all the scheduling and execution data is actually coming from OnePlan itself with our own planning tools. That being said, here's one that's using Microsoft Planner. Here's one that's using Azure DevOps for its execution data. Here's one that's using Jira. Here's one that's using Microsoft Project Professional or Project for the Web. Here's one that's using Monday.com. The idea there is the overall portfolio management roll-up and top-down planning of all this can happen in OnePlan, yet if you have time and effort invested in other planning tools, we can sync that plan into OnePlan and make that work. So, for example, as you drill into a particular plan, the elements in a plan within OnePlan includes a details page, which has a format of your choosing, meaning the data you'd like to capture, the data and the categorization and the metadata you want to capture, the business case, which may have come over from your idea or request, right? The prioritization that you used, the current status of your schedule, your financials, and the effort utilization, how your KPIs are looking and how they're trending, current status that was given on a narrative basis. And even if you'd like to look at the associated plans, as we talked about with the visualization, here listed are the things that would show up in the visualization. This project is associated with a bunch of different key results, a bunch of different applications, and some products. So the idea here is this is here in a form as well as in that visualized stage. There's also a work plan in here. And as we look at the work plan, we have a very flexible work planning methodology, meaning you can plan more waterfall-like, you can plan more agile-like. In this case, I've got a schedule work type that if we look at this, it is pre-built in here, and it could have been built from a template, should you want to say, do those templating exercises to have consistency in plan structure. You can actually have waterfall plans that, agile plans that use more of a backlog and sprint plan approach, where we now have user stories and requirements and tasks, etc., and we might even break those things out and allocate them to different sprints. And these sprints can be either defined right here with limits on story points or hours as we come through there, as we look at these individual sprints. And the key here is that these can come either built right within OnePlan, or if you're using another agile tool for this, we could choose to connect this to Azure DevOps or to Jira or any other elements that you'd like to enable on a connector basis. The same holds true with the schedule work type. So that schedule work type, for the more waterfall planning, the waterfall tools that you might want to connect with might be something along the lines of, these might be along the lines of using Smartsheet or Project for the Web or Microsoft Planner or Monday.com or Project Professional. So the idea is that you can choose to have these sourced from other places as you see fit. And other work types that come with the tool are to be able to log issues and risks, right, in those areas, and be able to log them here and be able to track them and assign them to people as part of their overall work efforts. The risks that we talked about in the slides, being able to identify those here and make someone assigned responsible for monitoring those risks and identifying those things and helping identify mitigations on those types of things. And if you assign them to somebody here like a Daniel Williams, it will show up in their assignments for something that they have to status and update along the way. You can even add your own work types in here. There's change requests and key decisions in here, but we have people add things in here like assumptions and lessons learned and other ones of their own type, and that's just simple configuration if you'd like to add additional things like that. If I go back to the portfolio, what I would like to show is that we do have board views of the portfolios, which means we can look at this in a more agile type of way, agile or lean types of approaches using boards. And in this particular case, I've got a board where the columns, and you can choose what data element you'd like to define the columns by, or the swim lanes in here. red, yellow, green on this case on what the status is on these particular case. And notice there's a red here on this market research here, which might be important to our R&D efforts. And if I want to go look at this and go pop out a quick edit from this board view, just like I did before, I can see what's going on with this market research effort, and I can see why it's off track and the status of that as well, just on demand. I can also add swim lanes into these things. So for example, if I was going to look at this stuff by, say, category or project or any other piece of metadata, now I've got these swim lanes by what's going on in process improvement, what's going on in strategic planning, what's going on in compliance projects, etc. So the idea here is very flexible board views. And the same holds true with our roadmap views. Now, these roadmaps don't have to be built. They're automatically constructed by the tool. And as we look at something like this, I got one here that's got all my efforts organized, and the swim lanes are actually by business unit in this particular case. The color indicates the status. And I don't think there's any filtering here on this at all. But once again, I can actually get to any part of any of these, right, by just clicking on it and getting to a quick edit, getting to a schedule, getting to whatever, because this is live data, not just an artifact of a roadmap that's out there. And I could quickly go look at this, and if I was going to look at this, say by, let's just say I was more product oriented in my research and development, I can go look at it by, say, product instead of by the business unit or the category or whatever it might be. So once again, very flexible road mapping. The other key piece in here is the resource plan. You know, as I go into here and I build individual resource plans within my individual schedules, it's all going to aggregate up to a comprehensive resource plan. And that comprehensive resource plan, this view I'm showing is grouped by role. So I can see what I need from an engineer perspective. And I can look at it in terms of hours, or I can plan it in terms of different things, hours, percentages, full-time equivalents. And if I look at FTEs or full-time equivalents, I can see how many of these things that I need and where I'm over and under allocated. From an R&D perspective, maybe I'm interested in the engineer element here. And I also see that I still have two projects where I have generically assigned engineer, where I haven't given a name to that engineer that's going to work on that. So for example, I could go in here and I can go look for candidates. And let's just say I was going to look for candidates to put an actual engineer, a named engineer on this user interface enhancements project. And I can find resources by criteria, or just ask it to find a best match for me. And it's going to look and show me the resources that have the skills that I need. And it looks like Steve Masters might have the availability that I need, or Matt Ross in engineering might have the availability I need during this time frame up here. And I can replace that generic with that resource right here and do that resource balancing very simply here through the mix. I can do the same type of things to relieve an over allocation on an individual resource if I have the resources with availability to do that. So once again, resource planning across all this is very important to make sure that we can actually apply the right skills at the right time to deliver on the things that we're committing to. I'll briefly show you the enterprise architecture piece, where this is where those associated items that might factor into our decision, or things that might require modification in order to support our new R&D efforts. That's something that we got to consider as we go through here. So what I'll just briefly show you is that there's multiple portfolios that could be here. Now I've got a multi-portfolio view here where I've got it organized by products. So we have a portfolio of products, we have a portfolio of business capabilities, we have a portfolio of applications, we have value streams in here, and you can define whatever you'd like to as enterprise or business architecture elements. As I look in here and I drill into a product, let's say I drill into Pied Piper, you'll notice that the form that comes up for the details we're capturing around a product is different than what we were capturing for a product or what we were capturing for an idea, right? You know, what's in here is basically going to give us, in this case, I'm looking at more of a product canvas where they define the product description and vision and mission and strengths and weaknesses and full SWOT analysis in here, for example. and be able to put the relevant data in here. So this different plan type that we have in here for product or different portfolio type allows us to have different forms for those types of things. The same holds true if we were going to do something in an application. If I looked at, say the customer relationship management one, this one would have its own canvas in this own form for the data you'd like to capture around those, and be able to capture things like financials for cost of the application, total lifecycle cost, or the work plan, or whatever it might be that you might want to have around release schedules, etc. And the last thing I probably will cover on today is the modeler. And this is where we can define new models, and we can create different folders for different areas of the business. So for example, the innovation office might have some idea planning and modeling that's in here that's done. And, in that, we can be looking at a variety of different things. We can decide which ideas are going to be part of our model. And the things that we would potentially like to do. And then we can put constraints on these things like, can we do a budget that is, if we only had a $1 million budget, what could we fit into there on a priority basis? A $1.5 million budget, what can we fit in there on a priority basis, right? And then as we analyze those things and compare them, we can look at, say, how many things we can do for another $500,000. I can only get one more project done, but the benefits that I get will be more than the investment that I make, right? And how much will it take in resources, et cetera, and budget that we're going to need. Probably a more full data set that I have on a scenario. I'll open this particular one up to give you the full breadth of this. Here we go. So what's interesting here is that as I look at the total population of things that I would like to do in these different projects, and what it would take from a resource perspective, right? If I look at the resource plan aggregate of all these things that are in this model, it looks like I have a lot of red and yellow, so it may not be doable from a resource perspective. It looks like from a financial perspective, if I look at that from a financial aspect, it may not fit overall within the budgeting constraints that I particularly have. But if I go and look at different scenarios, this is where I would select and deselect projects or move projects out in a timeline. Let's just go to the $10 million budget on this one, where my constraint was a $10 million scenario. And we can save as many different scenarios as we want against this model. So we can evaluate an unlimited number of alternatives. But in this, we came up with a model which out of those, there was, with $10 million, there was 17 prioritized projects that got in, another 18 that were out, right? As I looked at the $15 million project, $15 million limitation on that scenario, as we selected and deselected projects and moved things out in time, we actually had 27 projects that we could do. And what's nice is that we can compare them. So I can compare the different scenarios, as many as I have. And here it's looking at, hey, for another $5 million, I can do 10 more projects. And it looks like for that $5 million incremental investment, I can get an additional $20 million in projected benefit. Might be worth our time to go get that. I can look at the details around this. So I can look at comparing the different scenarios at the $10 million versus the $15 million. I can go compare them side by side and see what was selected, what was not selected, and do the comparison myself to see if I've overlooked something. Other things that we can do is we can look at, for example, the traditional portfolio management bubble chart analysis, whereby in this particular scenario, I can see what was selected. The size of the bubble is the size of the budget, but this is the benefits versus the prioritization score. And as I look at it, I can see what I selected and make sure that they're all legitimately selected based upon their value to the organization. And I can even interject the plans that weren't selected in gray to see if there was something I overlooked. Same thing was true with our visualizer. We look at our visualizer in this, and we can actually go here. It uses the visualizer in a slightly different way, in that it can come in here and say, of the selected plans, which had predecessors or successors that it needed that we didn't select? And should we reconsider the unselected ones based upon the importance of the things that we did select? So once again, another further analysis on this as we go through an unlimited number of scenarios. Now, ultimately, for the team member and the contributor, I'd mentioned that bringing everything into one place for a team member or a contributor to go to see all their work. It's a simple My Work area for that individual. And they can come in and see everything that's been put on their plate, whether they be tasks, whether they be issues, risks, whatever they might be, backlog items. They can come in here and look at those things as they see fit at any given point in time.